with someone, let them know what your needs are, and they can do an assessment, put it into their system. So if you're going in, let's say to a VA for just something random with your benefits, but you also need a job, or you need housing, or you need immediate, in some cases, immediate bill pay assistance, things like that, or housing, they will put your information into a network. So you only have to go to one spot and one spot only to get all your needs met, which is pretty awesome. My brother went through the network at one point in his life during his transition. It is amazing. They are not everywhere in the country, but we're working to get there. So just wanted to put that out there because I know there's a lot of stuff happening right now in the country, with multiple things going on. So America Serves Network, I'll post a link to the webpage here a little bit later, but we want to get started with our session today. So I'd like to welcome Sean Branagan with us today. Thank you so much for being back with us. He has been able and available to speak at the first two classes, and this is his third one for Spark.
One of these days I'll get it right.
He is not a stranger to IVMF. He speaks at multiple programs for us. He is also a professor at the Newhouse School at Syracuse. He teaches a couple of different classes there. And he does a lot of other things as well. And I'll let him introduce that portion about him. So Sean, if you wouldn't mind, I'll throw it over to you to just introduce yourself, and then we'll kick it off with some questions for you. And then just as a reminder to everyone, if you have questions as we start going, post them in the chat or let me know you have a question, and we'll throw the mic to you to let you ask it live.
Thanks, Deanna. It's great to see everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. As my daughter is saying, 2020 is the worst year ever, and I don't care how old you are. This is the craziest, worst year of things just happening. Wildfires, hurricanes, COVID. I mean, the list goes on and on. And her dog died. So that was like the one that said, oh, worst year ever. Anyway, as if my dog knows something's going on, he's sitting next to me. He usually doesn't. He comes down, my great big pit bull. So if you see something jump up, that's him. Hi to everybody. Yeah, as Deanna was saying, I teach media entrepreneurship at the Newhouse School, which is the media school at Syracuse University. But I have been an entrepreneur for overwhelming part of my career. This is the longest I've ever been employed anywhere, which is at Syracuse University, coming up on 10 years. Who would have figured that? But the first 30 years was me doing my own gig, various different kinds of ways. Commonality that runs through all the things that I do is, as my ma used to call me, my dear ma, she used to call me a storyteller and an instigator, and I'm both. So as an entrepreneur, you're an instigator, you get stuff started. Thankfully, I worked with some partners who helped operationalize those things that I got started so that we had some successes. A little bit about my business background is I started a business fresh out of college, was going to be a journalist, and instead went into typesetting. How many people know what typesetting is? Okay. Couple of hands. That's a pretty good indicator. It's probably not a good industry to have gone into. And in 4 years, the business failed. I learned a whole lot of stuff. I learned that I like the idea of starting a business and running a business. Got hooked on that. But I also learned that you need to pay attention to what the market is, not that you're smarter than the market, which is where we're going to go with value creation. The idea that you're going to just create value because you're smarter is nonsense. You need to be, as you're going to learn with your design thinking. Have these guys done the design thinking yet or not?
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Wow, dog action. See, I told you, the dogs all know. They do. They all know what's going on. He's come over to me. He's like right below me going, I know, Tanga died over there at my daughter's house. So anyway, and was that dog sounds?
It sounded like it. I don't know who it came from.
Yeah.
But so they will be, it's part of, if they may have watched the video already on it, but it's part of this week.
But it's the idea that you begin with where the customer is. And it's not just a process you do in a, at the whiteboard. It's a process you do as an entrepreneur every day. You're constantly paying attention to what the market is telling you. It's not going to tell you in direct ways. It's going to tell you in these hidden sort of nasty ways. Like the customer comes over and tells you you're an idiot and you shouldn't do it this way. And then they just happen to say something that makes you, if you're a good entrepreneur, pick up, oh, wow, I still hate that person. Let me just be clear on that. Whoever this was who just chewed me out. But they said something that might lead to that magical moment of a next product or the success or the direction of the company. So back to my career, I then took a job, immediately started thinking about what to do next. I got into this other little business in the internet. Has anybody heard of the internet? I asked about, did you ever hear of typesetting? Yeah, all your hands go up on the internet. That was in the 90s. It was sort of just getting started as a commercial thing. I did a nice run in the 90s and sold the business to a publicly traded company at the end of 1999, which was a great time to sell because all of the world caved in 2000. It was called the dot-bomb period, where all the internet stocks deflated. All kinds of companies went out of business. But the good ones survived, like Google had already started and it survived and did really well. A bunch of other ones fell apart and were never to be heard from again, which is great. But we had sold our company. I went to a company that then went into bankruptcy because they didn't know what they were doing, but we were happy to take their money and sell the company to them. And when they went into bankruptcy, we had written our contract that in the event of bankruptcy, all assets revert back to me. So lesson one is get a good lawyer, because we were aware there are all kinds of crazy things happening in the internet space. And the company that bought us was pretty arrogant. They had $86 million and they blew through $86 million in 21 months. Yeah, that was a good party. Okay, just so you know. It was bad business, but it was a great party. We then got the business back, but instead of running that, we were acquired. The company was acquired by a couple of billionaires who realized this internet thing is going to be big, but you just need to wait a while. And as billionaires can do, they can wait. They invested in the company and we bought a whole bunch of companies. We bought 12 companies in 18 months and we moved we built up to a $125 million company out of Boston. Doing what is now called cloud services. So we were doing internet services. I wasn't on the techie side. I was on the branding and marketing and strategy side. So my through line of all of mine is storytelling. I was telling stories about the internet and using the internet to tell stories and all the elements of story, which is what entrepreneurs do. We tell stories and we add meaning. So one of my takeaways on where we are, so I did that and then got fired and blah, 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 whatever. Started a bunch of different other businesses, have started some lifestyle businesses, some small businesses, even have been on the board of a startup of a social venture, social impact venture. And I got a new one I'm started. And this is news to you, Deanna. I don't think I've told you this. At the start of this January, I'm chairman of Scrappy Capital, which is an investment fund that we're going to invest in small seed, high growth companies in out of the way rising tech cities like Austin, Atlanta, Nashville, Chattanooga, Cincinnati. See if I can remember them all. Columbus, Provo, Salt Lake City. I'm forgetting one. Did I say St. Louis? St. Louis. And that's what we're doing beginning of the 2021. So what I hope will be the amazing year after the world's worst year. So 2021, I'm bullish on. So I teach this stuff. I live it. I work with investors. A lot of people get hooked on the idea that you have to go get an investor, and we're the investors that will tell them, don't go get an investment. You got a great business. Don't mess it up with investors. Just go build your business and go get a loan and pay off your loan and things along those lines. Anyway, we're here to talk about value creation. I'm just going to give you a couple statements, if that's okay, Deanna. Is that a good way to start?
Yes, I think that's great.
so a lot of times people think value is in the product. It's the thing that people buy. And I'm going to tell you, it's not. That's the thing you can invoice them from. As a mentor of mine years and years ago said, you need to visualize the invoice. That was his like magic moment. And it's really quite good. Like, who's in the two? Who am I going to charge? What am I going to charge? What am I going to say I'm charging for? And actually, he said the part that you need to visualize is, what is it that they really are buying that's not on the invoice? Because that's the difference maker. Why you go to this restaurant versus that restaurant a lot of times has less to do with the food and more to do with the ambiance or the way you were treated or the, you know, the convenience of it or how you felt. It's an emotion. So entrepreneurs are the ones that do this. Engineers make features. Cooks make food and features. All those people that build stuff, we need them in our businesses. But entrepreneurs create value. We're the ones who figure out that it's going to be this delivered in this way, or we're going to have moments of truth in the process where the value really goes up. And that value is from emotion. So focus on human need and human emotion, and that's the path to success with a business. It's not even in a B2B. I was looking out of the number of in your cohort, or probably 2 times as many are in consumer services than there are in business to business. But business to business people buy because it's not a business that's buying, it's a person. They're buying because it's safe. They're buying because it makes them feel good and it's their call. So it's an emotion. They're buying your service over somebody else's because they know they can count on you in the middle of the night. Things like that make the difference, and it's emotional. It's not, oh, if you just compare feature to feature, we have a better product. I can tell you the names of companies that have had better products and features, and you've never heard of them because they're gone, because they don't pay attention to the relationship, the value that comes from emotion. So value creation is really about identifying emotions and then not just tacking them on as a marketing thing. Like, oh, we're going to say you'll feel better, but not build that into the product or service. You got to build it into the product and service. So in my career, I went from communications, just pure storytelling, to marketing communications, which is learning how to use all the different media and marketing tools to tell my story about a product or service for companies, both my company, for clients that we served, and for afterwards when I was when the company was bought out, that we went different ways into using story to advance our the product for our company. But one of the things I'm going to tell you is, we then got into product marketing, and that's where I realized the highest value for story and adding meaning is that you build marketing components into your offering. And that's, I'd love to talk more about that. Do you want to go Q&A? Deanna, do you want me to give a couple of points, or how do you want me to proceed?
So if you could just continue to give a couple of points, and then I'll have some questions that I can add on. I think the more information that you can share with this group, the better. That's beautiful. And then as the questions come in, I'll field them for you.
Perfect. All right. So when I talk about value coming from emotion, remember I told you I teach media, right? So a lot of times I'll get students or I'll get established media companies, and they come in, oh, but our documentary is the best. Okay. Like, oh, that's why we're going to win, because we're the best. Oh, is that right? That means I have to watch it in order to then buy it? How is that supposed to work? What is that mechanism? It's really hard to build in the marketing components of emotion after it's all made. So what I'm going to encourage you, especially since you guys are just starting your business, some of you probably have your business up and going, but you're still early, is to think about how to embed them and burnish those values, those moments of emotion into the product and service. A bunch of you, for example, have consumer services. They're usually saturated markets. So I'm going to give you a story of my daughter. My daughter whose puppy died. She's a personal trainer, completely saturated market. And when I told her that, of course, I'm dad and I'm a jerk for telling her that and what I don't believe in her and, you know, and all that happened. I'm like, no. I totally believe in you, Aubrey. You are amazing. And she's been a gymnast her whole life. She knows fitness, she knows training. But one of the things that she needs to do is not just say, well, I know this, so therefore they should come to me. Well, that's just you know, because you're you. They don't know you. How do you make it so they get to know you? How do you stand out? And so I said, break it down. What makes a person who comes to you successful? And at all the personal trainers. And she said, oh, well, that they stick to it. Well, what makes them stick to it? Well, they got to be motivated. Okay, well, what motivates them? And here I'm sitting as dad now. I will give my story behind the scenes. And I'm thinking, I know when she was in her best shape, right? Right before college, because she wanted to make the college gymnastics team. I'm so smart. And I said, so Aubrey, when were you the most motivated? Expecting her to say, when I was a senior in college. And she goes, or a senior in high school. And she says, Dad, that's really easy. It's right before my wedding. Excuse me? No, we were talking about fitness and training. What the heck are you? And she said, no, Dad, oh my God, you're right. You're right, Dad. And I love hearing that, even though I was not right, is I should focus on brides. They want to get fit for their big day and they work toward it and they have it circled on the calendar, you know, nowadays years in advance. And that's her business. She broke through the saturated market where there are all kinds of people, good, bad, and indifferent, doing personal training. And she focused on doing it for brides. What she ends up doing is she gets nearly the whole bridal party because the bride is going to get in shape and talks to her friends. And then they all say, well, look, we're all in town. Why don't we all go together? Next thing is Aubrey's getting them in bunches and they're showing up together. And now why are they staying? It's not the same thing. It's not motivation. The emotion has changed. Why do they all show up? We'll throw that out to you guys. Why do they show up?
Answer in the chat or unmute yourself.
I was gonna say before you killed my thought, it's peer motivation. If one of them's gonna show up, they're all gonna want to show up.
All right, so you use words that don't sound like emotion. You're on it, but make it emotional. What is the emotion?
Oh no, I'm so sad. I must show up with everyone else.
That's right. It's like, I want to belong. I don't want to be the jerk who did. Yeah, so it's emotional. And those are the emotions that keep the business going.
James said the connection and the bonding as well.
Exactly, it becomes community. I want to be a part of something. And now I'm not about motivation for fitness. I'm 2 weeks in, that's looking good. I'm getting all those vibes. But now on top of it, it's, I don't want to stop. So guess what happens when the wedding day happens?
Well, some continue because of the results that they have received. So they want to continue with those results.
Very small amount. That's what they say. But the real reason they continue is the emotion. And the emotion is they feel good and they feel good about themselves. And additionally, was they feel good being with their community. They have done it together. You know, we did it. You know, instead of I did it, it's we did it. And it's a very powerful thing. That's the kind of emotion that you need to look at when you look at your business. Build those moments in. So what do they do? So Aubrey sends them greeting cards at different times because they're a community. She's reminding them about how motivated they are and how great a group they are. She makes them a group, those kinds of things. Her business has changed significantly with all this COVID stuff, but that's a whole nother matter. She's doing okay, but it requires the same, almost redoing the business because everybody is, you know, in a different place on this COVID stuff. So know that entrepreneurs are the ones who create that value by finding the emotion and building it into the service, not just putting it as the marketing language. That's marketing communications. Anybody can do that. All your competitors can start saying the same nonsense. When you imbue it into the service and into the product, it is it is a value proposition. I deliver on the promise. Value proposition. Let me see. Mistake is, I did that. Build it into the product. Focus on the customer. We talked about that. And then I'm going to give you one other thing where value resides. A lot of times when you're thinking about your market or your customer, we talk these days still in demographics. We say, oh, the person who's going to buy my product or service is, and this is good, but I'm going to tell you, I want you to do a persona. And then I want you to go and talk to those real customers, not your friends, because your friends will say you're wonderful and it's a brilliant idea and great. You need that every once in a while, but mostly you really need somebody who says, well, I wouldn't use that, but you know, blah, blah, blah. And then you say, well, what one would you use? And then you say, do you do anything in this space? Why not? You know, what holds you back from doing it? I don't really think it's important. I don't care. Da, da. Okay, well, what's important to you? You know, you don't just ask about, how do you like my product? What do you think I'm doing? Where am I? You ask broad questions because you're trying to find where is their emotion and drive in their life. And you might find they're not your customer, but here's the real takeaway you're going to find these days is you're going to ask them about things they do. And these days you can target, especially with things like Facebook campaigns, you can target based on behavior, not based on demographic. We are in the post-demographic era. I teach a class on looking out into the future of media, and that's the one that I've been hampering on for the last 2-3 years. We are in the post-demographic world. We still talk about men, women, in location and income levels and all that stuff. And it's actually nonsense. Those were put in place so that we could categorize and do something on targeting for marketing and advertising. And nowadays, you can advertise that people who listen to this artist are going to buy my product. That makes no sense because they're going to be of every demographic breakdown, and you are going to find that kind of magic stuff. And guess what? It is not evident to your competitor, which gives you a marketing competitive advantage because they don't know how your ads or your messaging or your targeting is working because it's part of your secret sauce. You're not going to tell everybody. Our customers tend to, and you're going to know things about them. So I'm going to tell you, draw a picture of your personas and get away from the demographic. You're going to draw a man, a woman, whatever, draw whatever that thing is that you think it is, and then put all the things they do. What are their behaviors? I'll give you an example. We do this with a bicycle shop in one of my classes. This is a story. It's called All In Startup for those who want to read a novel about entrepreneurship. It takes place at the World Series of Poker. And it's two entrepreneurs meet at the World Series of Poker. And spoiler alert, the overarching point is it's not about winning all of poker world. It's about winning on your table. And in fact, you only have a few people around the table and you need to read the people at the table more importantly than read everything that's going on in poker. And the young entrepreneur knew how to play poker really well, but was not running his business the same way. He was thinking, oh, everybody who buys a high-end $5,000 bike. Anybody own a $5,000 mountain bike? You have to be really into biking, right? And you would think you have to make a lot of money. But the exception to that is most people who buy them don't complain about the price. They're buying because they are looking for specialized things. This is a really light frame. I'll be able to go farther. I'll be able to do this. It's made with titanium. It's got and it's not bells and whistles like, ooh la la, I'm showing off. It's stuff I need to be the kind of biker I want to be. And if I'm making minimum wage and I'm buying one of those bikes, you never would have an ad targeted to you because most of the advertising is demographic and you would not qualify. But a person who's spending an inordinate amount of their money on an expensive high-end bike and might be buying it used and then fixing it up, they're your customer by behavior. And finding that is the new world order in success in business, is finding customers based on their behavior. That's where the value is. So you then build in more. So if I know my customers tend to listen to this artist, what music are we playing in the store? They walk in and they're like, oh my God, I love that artist. I know, because I did my homework, and I'm not just doing demographics. I'm doing this deep behavioral graphics. So those are a couple of my how to create some value. So do you want to go to questions, or do you want me to keep on going?
I actually do have a question, but first, what can you name the title of the book that you were mentioning again?
I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, perfect. So I just wanted to ask a little so what the group is really doing is kind of working through, their value proposition. Oh, nice. Own startup. And one question that I have, like to get your opinion on, is how do you test the strength of your value proposition?
You get in front of customers, and you don't just listen to what they say, you watch how they behave. So to me, the biggest mistake is, and then another one is data is, do they give you money? And my brother, and I'll give a story about him and his business. Hey, let me type the last name of the author here, Diana Canner. Make sure I spelled her name right. I did. All in startup. Somebody can do a link to Amazon if you want off of that, and then everybody be able to get it. So it's a little dicey, a little sexual tension, a little bit of poker going on in there. It's a good little novel, but it brings across how to be an entrepreneur, and actually gets, Deanna, to your question, which is how you ask questions. And in the book, the young entrepreneur is asking leading questions like, wouldn't you want a cheaper bike? That's a terrible question to ask, because the answer is yes and no, which is a terrible measure. I have got no, qualitative information there, but I have, but also it's a leading question. Like, you're already narrowing it to, isn't the price, you're really telling them the price is too high, because that's your assumption. So you get the assumptions out of the way, and you just start talking. Say, so why are you buying a bike? Is it for you? Is it for somebody else? So you find that the customer may be a parent, and the consumer is the kid who's going to ride it. And knowing that is a huge difference, because who's parting with their money? Mom or dad? Who's the consumer who's going to say, thanks, and this is the greatest? Or, really? This is the one you bought? What is wrong with you? I thought you were like loving me and being my parent. Anybody have kids? I've had those statements. Like, I was trying, this is a gift. Why don't you? Anyway, those are the kinds of things that I do, is I try to unpack what the market is by going and talking to the customer. Meet them where they are. Here's another trick. When you are approached in the mall, we've all had this. Hi, I'd like to ask you for a consumer state. Most of us say no. The one who's staying employed by that consumer survey, they work the food court, because then people are sitting down. And if I walk up to you when you're sitting down, you'll give me a minute or two, as long as I don't sit down next to you, unless I'm invited. So there's a couple of ways that you get people to answer the question. If you do a focus group, remember, they're going to be really complimenting you on the sandwiches. They're lying. They're not telling you the truth. They're going to tell you nice things, which is nice, because most people are nice. But nice doesn't help you improve the product.
Can you talk?
Alan has a hand up too.
I'm sorry. Oh, Alan, sorry. I don't, he saw it and I didn't.
That's a
when
rarity.
You send somebody out to collect data like that, or you're collecting the data yourself, wouldn't there be a level of comprehension and understanding how to navigate through those research biases?
Yeah, and I would say move away from the idea of data. You really want to get qualitative information. I'll give you an example. So I was working early after my typesetting business failed. I was working for Caterpillar, big construction company, and I happened to be working in a territory that was being invaded by Komatsu, which is the Japanese maker of a similar product. Notice I said similar. I still have my allegiance to Caterpillar and the high sprocket. And I was asked, because we had customers that had been met with our competitor, could I put together a list of our customers and former customers that we would go and talk with them. And that was our whole issue, is how do we come away with data? And we worked with this big consulting group that Caterpillar paid for, so I didn't have to pay for it, which was great. And they said, we really just need to be comfortable with the qualitative stuff. And then we're going to sort through a lot of quotes of what the customer said, and then align those. We'll put data to it afterwards. And then say, and I'll give you an example. We were selling to like mines and sand pits and gravel pits. And, you know, these were not really sophisticated businesses in a lot of ways. The quarries were, but the sand pits and the gravel pits were not. And so the people who ran them were not really sophisticated business people. They weren't engineers or people who had, one guy said, look, my toughest job is getting in here early enough in the morning to open up the gate so they can give me money. That was the quote. Now, where do I put that in data? I don't know. That was #1 slide when we started the presentation to Caterpillar management. And then he went on to say, the same guy, that he has millions in savings accounts, which may not be a really well thought out financial strategy, but he had millions, and you're offering me leasing programs, which is telling me you don't think I can buy your yellow trucks. This is qualitative stuff. This is story, and we have a hard time. Those stories inform us probably at a level that's more actionable than data. So I would say, yeah, we would then put them into data. One of the things we did, Alan, was we had cards, and we say, here are 15 things, put them in order of importance. And it would be durability, reliability, American made, et cetera, et cetera. And they would put them down on their desk and just sort of shuffle them around real quick. And then they go, yeah, that's about it. Then we'd say, thanks. And we put them all, we just scoop them all up in order, and we're going to look at them later. We're not going to look at them now. So basically, we got them to do a survey in this really easy way while we're face to face. Because then when we would go out afterwards, we said, do you remember how he kept switching between American made and durability? And we're like, yeah, he was having a hard time with that. And our takeaway was, we think if it was American made and equal durability, we'd win. That's an actionable thing, right? We're an American made company. Let's promote that we're American made, but not just promote it. Let's make sure that we don't make mistakes and not make it American made. That was the kind of stuff that was deep to the company. So capturing data, you got to sometimes be really clever, and sometimes you just need to say, I don't care. I'm just going to keep it qualitative and keep it a bunch of quotes. 100 quotes will beat, a statistically accurate data set, I think, most times, in terms of being able to know what action to take. You're going to hear emotion from your customer or from your potential customer or consumer. Hope that helps.
I have a question for you. Good evening. Thank you for coming.
Like your backdrop.
Thank you.
You can see I'm a backdrop person, right?
What I was thinking about as you were speaking, and thought about the consumers as they came, as you're in the mall or different places, and it's kind of hard to do now, but I get a lot of different things from the algorithms from like LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram. I know when you're in a business, you have to always think about putting the customer's needs before your vision, because
well put.
For me, I was thinking, yeah, you have a great vision, because I had to think about this one day. I have a very great vision, and it's like, oh, so many people are doing the same thing. And then I had to sit, and then I said, well, I'm going to start looking at what is it that customers really need? What is it that they want? Because in most classes that I've sat in, everyone always uses the example of Starbucks. but there's so many other variations that you can look at. I look at Target versus Walmart. Look at the needs. Look at how it's set up when you go there, and Whole Foods versus whatever the next. Where I live in Maryland, Whole Foods is too far from me, so I have like a common market, or I can go to the commissary. But bottom line, what I've gathered so far from what you've said is basically making sure that I put my customers' needs in front of my vision, because if not, like you said too, you can do all this stuff and you'll run out of money because you're thinking about only your vision and not what the needs are for the consumer.
You should be a consultant. You're really good.
That's
What's your business?
My business is a consulting business for human
Hey,
resources. Yes, that's what I do. I've been doing equal employment opportunity, EO, with the federal government for the past 25 years.
Okay.
And now I'm the deputy over the equal employment opportunity investigators. So we deal with individuals with different backgrounds. By the time it gets to my team, they're already angry and they're looking to get some money after we're completed with their investigation.
So I did some consulting for a while, and what we used to use as our metaphor is nobody's asking us to come in and everything's working great. It's when I'm walking in and the building's on fire, I know I have a sale, right? They're like desperate to do something. So as a consultant, you know when the problems are big, you're going to get a contract. Doesn't mean you can solve the problems. That's the hard part about you taking on something and then you get inside. The other thing I used to say is I can work with a company that's neurotic. I can't work with one that's psychotic. You know, when they're deadly to each other and toxic. It's almost like we used to have a line. We go, we don't think you're a fit. And they would go, no, we love you guys. You do exactly what we want. And I'm like, yeah, well, we don't want to work with you. I don't want to say those words, but
Right.
It's nice when you get to that point. But when they have little idiosyncrasies or biases that they don't see and things like this, like you're saying, that's when you can make a difference by just shedding light on it, like talking to them about, but you got to carry that emotional part. Like first be on their side of the table. As a consultant, I would tell you, I did this for a while, and you first get on their side of the table. So they start telling you, oh, you kind of like do what I do. They feel like they're the one who's telling me that I'm on their side of the table instead of me telling them I'm on their side of the table. And that's when you're ready. Their emotion is now set where you can say, okay, so now, yeah, I've been on your side of the table and here's the mistakes I've done. And I'm seeing some of them here, things along those lines. So when you're talking about, go ahead.
So you can almost put that in perspective as like what some people look at when they talk about diversity and inclusion, how people like to wrap it up together when diversity is the what. And I mean, yeah, diversity is the what when you look at diversity and inclusion, because when you think of it, it's the traits and the characteristics. When you look at diversity and inclusions refers to your behaviors and how you deal with it. So you have to, I take all those things into account as I think of how I'm going to start the business.
Yeah, and I think what you described that it's a busy, it's a market with a lot of players. I always say, okay, I hate it, but I love it. I love it more than I hate it because it means there's a market there. The worst type of market is nobody else is doing this. Okay, maybe nobody wants it. You know, maybe
Right.
there's nobody doing it because nobody wants it or nobody wants to pay for it or nobody can pay enough for it. But when there's lots of players, then it's about who can shine the brightest in this space. And that's an opportunity. Typically people say, oh, that means marketing. Yes, but I would go deep. I'd go product marketing, like have a part of your deliverable that is difference making so that as soon as you walk out, they cannot wait to tell about the service they got from you. Not like, oh, it was great service. That's fine. All of it's great service. That they say, like, I'll give you another story here. Is my brother's a contractor. Lots of contractors, saturated market. What makes you different, Joe? Oh, I do high quality work. Okay, so they have to put a porch on their house before they know how good you are. Okay, they're not going to do that to find out if you're good or not. They're going to judge based on other things. And he does insulation and replacement windows too. And I said, well, what do you know? And then he talked about how his company is perceived. And I said, nobody stands at the front of the house and goes, wow, look at the insulation on that house, right? It's not visible. It's not. So the value is hard to see, right? It's a warmer house. So how do I know it's warmer? I don't know. I don't live there. And I don't know how much better my house will be when it's insulated, et cetera, et cetera. So we came up with this idea of being remarkable. You have to build into your product, and in this case, your service, something that your customer or a nearby in the vicinity individual can remark on it. So I was telling him, here's the one he did, and then I'll tell you the one he wouldn't do, which I wish he had done, is at the end of the job, he brings over a pie for them to put in the oven. And he said, I just want to give this to you as a thank you. And smells, taste, it gets all the emotion. The house feels cozy and warm because an apple pie was just in the oven. It's not fighting fair, right? I mean, it's just not fair he's doing this. So he got known, he would be going off to these trade shows and people go, oh, aren't you the pie people? And he goes, I hate being known as that. I'm like, stop, Joe. You just want to, build a big, put insulation in and do that work, do that and do it well. But it's great that you're known as the pie people. That means they love you. I love pie. I don't love insulation. You see, it's emotion. So try to bring in more of that emotion. Here's the one I wanted him to do. I said, so every time you go into a neighborhood, you bring in that big loud truck that blows insulation in. It looks like somebody came by and did a drive-by shooting on the house, drilling all those holes in all the outside of the house, and you do it well, but it makes a lot of noise. So how do you turn that noise into attention-getting good behavior? Why don't you get your whole crew to wear like a tie-dye jumpsuits, and you guys come out of your trucks in your tie-dye jumpsuits, and you go in. We're not going to do that. I'm like, Joe, everybody in the neighborhood would be talking about you. You put a sign out with the tie-dye stuff on it. We're not doing that. I wish he had done it because it's remarkable. Everybody on that block would be talking to everybody else about insulation instead of him putting we are insulating this house, a big loud machine that everybody hates in the morning when he turns it on. Instead, they would go, oh, that's so cool. They come with tie-dye uniforms or whatever. That's being remarkable. It's doing the product and service, but building in emotion every chance you can. And it's hard to do. I love the dog here, Alan. The idea
they
that
like to howl.
Yeah. So the idea that you're going to have this moment at different points is like, look at the full job and what are the moments before they're customers, while they're customers, when they're done, a year after they're done, and build in more emotion. Those were the values are.
Okay, because the last thing that I've been working on is that I have several friends who are already in the consulting business. So what they have agreed to do is, before I start mine, is to allow me to be like a part-time employee of theirs, so that I can see how everything works from that aspect. And then from there, I can build a clientele for me. But the difference between my startup and what they're doing is that I'm offering webinars and online things because some people are still left where they want to do face-to-face, but there's so much more that you can do online. So for me, I was like, okay, if you don't have a lot of money and how do you want to start this up? You don't want to break your bank. You just use the resources that you have and network. And so I was fortunate enough to have those individuals to agree. And then I would recommend to my peers as well in this class, look at the market in the area where you are and see if if your customers may end up being like the school district, or maybe, it depends, because there's some services that school districts will need and they may not have the money for it. So you
Exactly.
think about going, be a guest speaker one night for our webinar or something, and just get yourself known. So those are the things that I'm doing. So I'm like my virtual marketing and also working on different aspects in the with the digital footprint to keep it going. So
Yeah, what you're talking about is the thing I call thought leadership, which is you start going out and you create a name for yourself, but you really highlight your customers. If you can do it by name, that's great. If you can't, you just do it by category. You'll say, this kind of company. Oh, I'm getting a little bit of feedback there. Is this somebody's?
Yeah, we just fixed it. We got it.
Okay, thanks. The idea that you would say a company that sells in the supply chain industry instead of naming FedEx, or a government agency that's responsible for blank instead of naming the exact agency. You can still do the same, point to the customer, and then you send them a quiet note to say, hey, this is really you, and you know that. How do you like this? Oh, okay, I'll tell people it's me, but I'm glad you didn't put my name in, and things like that. But you build thought leadership for yourself and credibility at the same time. Instead of a testimonial, it's saying, here's the problem, here's what we looked at, here's how we solved it, and we're still working on this, which is, instead of everything's a Disney ending. Tiffany, great talking to you.
Thanks. So we do have a couple other questions, so this is great. But I wanted to, I know Charles had made a really good point, and I know he just messaged me and goes, he's gone way past my points, but I think it's important to come back to. Charles, do you want to unmute, or I can just say it? But he was really just talking about when you were talking about the differences between data and information. So go ahead.
I'm a data analyst on my
Right.
civilian side. I'm
Bless
just
you.
retiring from the Army, but the point I make, and it's true within the military and out the military, there's a difference between data and information.
Right.
Data is what you collect. Information
Right down here,
is what you make decisions
Boom.
over.
I go
I
one
can't
step
give a-
further. I'd say in a business, you want to have an insight, and you need to be comfortable that you're wrong, but make it a insight. Like, I kind of think, and then it's people who listen to this artist like our product, and you might be wrong, and you come back and then look back at the information and below that the data, like your point, and maybe make another insight. But I would go a step further and try to get to an insight, because then you can really drive action with that insight.
Okay.
I have by the way, I have students all in media, and I try to get them into data because I'm saying the world is going to data-driven decision making. So we're in media, and I'll give you an example. I have a student who works at Netflix, and she came back, former student. She came and she talked to my class, and she said all the data stuff, and we gathered this and this and this. And a student raised their hand and said, "Oh, so Disney Plus just launched. Are you guys at Netflix afraid?" I loved her answer. She said, "We've been doing this for 10 years. That was her answer. She goes, "We have 10 years of data. I'm sure they're going to learn a lot of the stuff that we learned about 10 years ago." That's the advantage of
That's
data.
great
Once you
quote.
have data, it gets better over time, because you're able to see changes and trends, and and then they have data from before they were streaming. They have data from what people were watching when there was DVDs. For those who remember, you'd send in I need this DVD, and they'd send you a DVD. Do you think they didn't keep track of that? Like, people who watched this DVD also ordered this one. Maybe we'll offer them these 3. Hey, they took all 3. We're on to something. And then when you do streaming, that's happening even faster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. Boy, we kind of do the same thing at IVMF. I mean, now we've been collecting data for the last 12 years, 15 years, almost 15 years. And so now people are connecting with us more and more. I know we're not running a business, but we're in the business of helping people run their businesses. And the data that we collect is able to inform a lot of people too. And then you become a thought leader in the space too with that data. As far as us is concerned, I know it's kind of different, but that really hit home for me just now. I do want to get to a question by that James had a little bit earlier on when we were talking about identifying customer behavior. So he's wondering if there's a specific places that you can go to say, for an example, this person seeks mental wellness resources. You know, is that type of specific data out there somewhere? Or what should
I would say that, yes, that's probably somewhere, and it's probably in, I'm going to bet it's in a private proprietary database where somebody's done this bit of data, this bit of data, this bit of data, and either have gone off and polled people to ask them, or are looking at behaviors like number of people who have gone for an appointment with a mental health professional. And then they draw inferences and all that other. So they have a data model. And that'd probably be the insurance companies, almost for sure. My guess is some of the bigger players in this space, because there's some big systems that do mental health work. But I'm going to tell you that maybe better data is, so I'll give you a little story. So 90% of web searches are done on Google. So that means the last 10% is split between Yahoo and Bing, right? And Bing has this very small amount of searches, but it's still a big number. And it's a lot of searches. And Bing has figured out that because of search behavior, they can identify people's diseases before they knew they have them. That's because they're able to do inferencing from data, like people who looked at this and this and this and this and this, and they're not getting into personal information there. And if they are, that's their problem. But I'm just going to look at it as scientifically, is how are they doing that? And I'm going to tell you, you have access to that. I would encourage everybody to go and, just for fun, but to wow yourself, is to look at, actually, do you mind if I put up a graphic? Is that okay? If I can do a screen share?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you something that I was just showing the other night to my students. Let's see if I have it here.
And while he's finding that, if you're not in speaker view, to do that, you just go right up to the top right hand of your screen. It should say speaker view. You press that, it will enlarge Sean, and then you can see the slide he puts up.
It scares me to think me enlarged. It's just scary right there as a thought. Did I close the thing? I may have closed it.
That's all right. While you're finding it, we're talking about data, and I just wanted to let you all know is you don't really know the resources that are going to be available to you once you graduate this program, but there will be many. And we're actually going to have a webinar on that at the end of the course that'll say, now that you're a graduate of this program, what you have access to. And one of those things is going to be our info portal. And somebody, Sandra just posted, something about iBiz reports. We actually, that's one of the, if you click the hyperlink that I just put in, you can see the portal databases that you'll have access to through being a graduate of an EBV program. So you'll get all of that information at the end of the course, because you have to graduate first in order to have access to it. Did you, John?
I can't find the one I wanted, but this one looks close.
Okay.
The amount of data and targeting that's available to you in Facebook is astounding. It truly is astounding. Get away from the ethical questions there, just because they're legit, but let's just look at it as business people at this point. And let me see if I can find this. Yeah. Let me do a screen share on that. Where are we? Here we are. So I had too many windows open. That's my problem.
I always do that.
I know, I'm the worst. I am like, I need to have my 1,000 tabs open at all times in case. I don't know in case of what, but that's what in case of. There it is. All right, so I'll do a share of this. this will be, so do you see the Facebook advertises your business on Facebook? This is done by somebody else. This isn't done by Facebook, but first off, there's the huge number of users, et cetera, right? And then you can target by, these are the things that we talk about in demographic, like age and gender and, you know, work and education and things like that. Now is where it gets really interesting. They can start talking about where are they connected? How do I, this isn't doing some of the things I want, but it talks about which of them are in what kinds of industries. And then you can start looking at their behaviors. This is not the graphic I was hoping it was. It looked like it at first. But it goes on and on and on about all the things that it matches about behaviors. Good? Yeah, there was a little bit of, I was just working through the echo. The idea that you can target in a deep, deep way was unheard of like just 10 years ago. And now it's at everybody's fingers. You can go in and do this for your business and just set it for a time period and only spend $50 a day. And I'm going to tell you, it's your $50 a day for a few days learning experience that will change how you market. And that's where I'm getting is look at these as behaviors instead of demographics. And we tend to get closer to emotion. You know, is this a parent? Okay, you know, there's no better way to crowbar open their wallet than with their kids. I will tell you, you know, you make it, oh, but your kid will be better off. Okay, here's my money. And that kind of stuff is the behavior side of Facebook. Anyway, that wasn't the graphic I was hoping it would be, but I did close it down from the one I showed to my class the other night. Looked exactly like that.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. Spencer had a question, or not really a question, but a little more about, could you elaborate a little more when you talk about storytelling? And just to give you a little bit of insight into his business, he is starting an HVAC company, and the value he is trying to project is adding financial equity to their home, comfort, adding efficiency, dependability, and safety. He feels like at the beginning, it's hard to coherently explain and convey this value to a customer.
It's very similar to what my brother's business was with the installation and replacement windows. After doing some work with him in that space, he's gotten into the, it's just, I think it's the furnace side of that, not the full HVAC side. Who was it who had that question?
It was Spencer. He's
Spencer.
Got the hat on, beard.
Yep,
Okay.
right here.
Hey, Spencer.
Hey.
So here's where I'm going to go, which is exactly where I went with my brother. They don't care. They'll care later. They just don't care at the start. And you want to get them to be a customer, and then they will care and love you later. And that is kind of counter to what you've built, probably, right? You want to use safety, security, health, all those things are important to them. I would put them in as a quick statement, and then get to, okay, the value of their house will go up. So you did a calculation of value of the house so that it becomes emotional. Like, oh man, my house is worth more than that. Great. You got emotion out of them. You know, you want emotion. Like,
Right.
I think we can do that. I would even try to make it. So again, like I said, I used to joke with my brother. He hated this. I go, no one stands out. Look at the insulation on that house. Oh man, like look at the HVAC in that house. Wow, huh? You can't see it. If it's done well, it's invisible, right? It's an infrastructure. Right. And how do you make that visible? That's the emotional one. Mm-hmm. How do you make yours? So maybe it's in the basement. I'm just going to riff a little bit. Maybe it's in the basement. You put stickers that are smiling, and it says, air is flowing, your family's safe, and it's got a smiley face. Or you put, so instead of, oh, I hate that this vent is coming down, this duct is coming right down here, and I wish I wasn't seeing it. You turn it into a positive. It's the thing they all talk about. Yeah, these guys came in and they put little stickers. I'll give you another one I saw at a grocery store. They put little Post-it notes on the bananas, and it said, "I'm single, pick me." Like all the single bananas are the ones that usually go bad because somebody says, "Oh, that has 5 on there. I'll tear one off and I'm going to take 4 home." And that one, the grocery store has a problem. And the problem is those don't sell as well. So they made it cute, like, "Pick me, I'm single," you know? And in the steak department, they have a little Post-it note that says, "Want to make your husband smile? Pick up one of these babies," you know? And yeah, it might put him in the hospital, but you'll be happy you brought it home tonight. Stuff like that. Like, think along those lines. Like, how do I make the part that you're going, "Oh man, I'm going to have to expose this element," make that part of the excitement that they're going to see it later.
Sure.
Go, like I was saying, what you're wearing, so that when you're in working on somebody's house, do you do this in commercial or residential or both?
Residential and light commercial, yeah.
Okay, so in the residential one, I would make sure that you're visible when you come in. Truck, don't park it all the way into the driveway. Park it near the street. Little things. I would make the truck noticeable in a fun way. Put balloons on it. Today it's the birthday of this house, and it's getting a little work done, you know, or something. Like, make it like it's the house is gonna have better bones. Something, you know what I'm getting at, is like, make it more human and more emotional. I'll go the same thing. Go do the thing my brother didn't do and get everybody wearing tie-dye stuff, or, you know, some shocking color. When Lyft started, you know, Lyft was against Uber. Lyft actually was doing what Uber was doing first. And in San Francisco, I remember the first time I saw Lyft is this car pulls up with this giant pink mustache on the front of the car. That was the way that Lyft was being noticed. I think they helped Uber because Lyft was the one that everybody started using at first. And then Uber said, "Oh, wait, we're only doing limos." That's why they call themselves Uber. And then they moved over into what Lyft was doing, which is more like taxi service. And the taxi service had this big pink mustache. So you got a beard. Make that your thing. Make that your thing. Like, sure. And don't just do it as a marketing thing. Make it as a thing. Anybody who knows HVAC has a beard. I don't know. That's just the way it is. And you make it that, you know, part of your gig is the beard. Then there's a beard hanging off of the post box outside after it's done. They're like, "What is that?" "Oh, it's our HVAC guy. He's a riot." And then they want to meet you. This just builds business right in the neighborhood you're in.
Sure.
Think of the cost savings.
Totally.
You know, you move into a neighborhood, you get one customer, and you're barely making any money on that customer. The next thing is you got one across the street, one down the street. Your crew knows where to show up. You already know what the make of the houses are, because a lot of times in the neighborhood they're similar build, so you know what you're up against. And then you know, when you're opening up that wall, you're not saying, "Why? Who built this house? What ridiculousness?" Yeah. Anyway, my brother's a contractor. Right. I heard his complaining.
Done that more than once. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So I hope that helps. I would build in things that other people can remark on. So when you're done, think about that. Think about before, during, after. Here's another one I gave them. Take your shoes off every time. The person who's making the choice of whether you come in is got other things rather than the quality of the HVAC. They're thinking about, is my house going to look clean when you're done? Do you respect my space? Do all those kinds of things. Even if they say, no, leave your shoes on, or put those, you know, those muffs that people put on when they're in emergency rooms and stuff. They just slide those things over their shoes. And they will just go, "That is so amazing that you're doing that. Thank you." You're showing them respect. I'm in your house.
Great.
Hope that helps. Thanks to my brother for all these ideas. Some of which
right.
Oh, the last one. I'll give you one more.
Okay.
I remember one time I was pulling up to a toll booth in New Jersey, and a plumber pulled up next to me. And I'm always looking for value propositions, like where somebody says something, then you go, wow, that makes them different. And it's the name of the plumber, and it says, "We show up." And I'm thinking, oh my God, how bad is the industry that just showing up on time is the difference maker? And sometimes that is the difference maker. So just be the one that tell them, look, we get back to you within 3 hours. You leave a message. Just get maniacal about it. I'm going to tell you, if you do that, you probably can charge premium, because the people who are wanting you to show up on time, tell them, not like the cable company, could you please be here between now and infinity so that we can put in the cable box? And you're like, I have a life and a job and things, and I don't want to be standing around waiting for you people, but then that's what they do. And they say, well, we'll call you ahead of time. And then they call you in the time, like the last second before they're pulling up. Like, what am I supposed to, like, leave my job and anyway, you get the idea. If you can get it so that you're showing up on time and you get back to them in reliable time frames, I'll predict you'll be able to charge maybe 10 to 20% more than your competitor, because the person who cares about that and cares about their time, they maybe have the dough and they're able to pay for that extra service, and they now know you're more reliable.
Sure. Those are all really good points. I appreciate the insight.
Hope it works out.
Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome.
So Sean, we have one last question. What was that, Jason? Jason said in DC there's a billboard that says, "Is your wife hot? Call Arlington HVAC." Oh man, that's great. We have one more question. I know we're running up on time, but I wanted to get to it. It's from Alan. Alan is the one with the dogs there as well. What would you recommend as parameters for balancing doing marketing and advertising efforts? Would you do them on your own or hire someone to take the load for you? What would be your opinion there?
I just was on a call with a student in our advertising department, and her professor is a guy I went to high school with, who used to be the president of a big ad agency in New York and in, I think in Hong Kong. And I tell all the students advertising's dead. So I am not a believer in advertising. I think it makes your job easy, and that's why it sells. And then people will say, oh, I heard you on the radio, or I saw you on the TV. And it doesn't really get you more business. It gets you visibility and people patting you on the back. And these are all what I call vanity metrics. They're not going to keep your business in business. They're going to keep you thinking that your business is in business because people know you or heard of you. I would do, if you're going to do anything in advertising, I would do Facebook advertising, which includes Instagram, especially if you're going to do consumer stuff. If you're in business to business, is use LinkedIn, but don't place ads. I would just use LinkedIn and get the premium service so you can search in a different way, and don't be creepy. Just say, hey, I saw what you posted. That is terrific. Done. And then they'll click to say, well, who are you? Oh my God, you do that? I actually need that. Or I know somebody who knows that, or nothing. But you have met them where they are in a way they are. Bless you, Deanna. The idea that you would, I was assuming that was, she's going, oh, I hate Sean. I hate Sean. I hate Sean. But the idea that, so where was I on where I lost my train here? Woo! Where was I? What was I on this question?
I was sneezing.
Sorry.
Alan, where was he?
The LinkedIn and don't be creepy.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. That's right.
Yeah, I know. But I was trying to get, what was the question I was answering? Because it's just like,
He
oh,
said,
so
"Don't be
do I
creepy,
do
but
advertising?
You need a lot of posts."
Right. So what I'm going to get as is be smart and do content. Don't do advertising. Paid space and interrupting people while they're doing stuff is over. But being intelligent to your and competent and helpful is on the rise. And if you can do help in some low cost way, do it for free. Just say, hey, look, I'm going to do this because I just feel like I want to help you. I'll give you an example. I had traded out my lawn service at my house, And I can't tell you how many times I had one guy come over, young kid and his dad. And I said, look, I'd like to talk to you about some of the things. And the guy comes to me and he goes, look, if you want perfect, okay, we're not going to do perfect. And all I kept thinking is, dude, I was giving you the business, but I don't even want to do business with you right now because you're making it that I have a problem and therefore I'm a problem. I'm talking to you. I could just simply tell you goodbye and you're gone and I don't need to hear your nonsense. Instead, I get another one. They came in, at least they were informational. This one guy comes over and he goes, well, I'll just come over and mow it and then I'll know. I'm like, well, I'll pay you. He goes, well, if you want to, fine, but I'm just going to come over and mow it and then I'll tell you what I'm going to charge. Genius. The guy's reliable. He showed up on the day. And then just yesterday, no shit, I took the, excuse my language, I took the gate off knowing he was going to come on a Tuesday. He didn't come yesterday. So yesterday I'm gone. And my wife has texted me, they showed up and I have the gate hanging. It's like treacherous. It's not. And he goes, never mind. They figured it out. Of course they did. Who am I going to do business with? Am I going to quibble over, his price is a little higher? No. That's the game. It's emotion. I can count on them. I have a story to tell. So those are the things that I would do is to give your customers stories they can tell other people, not tell them the story, but do good things. They will tell, like I'm doing. I'm telling you that if somebody says, hey, who should plow my driveway? We're upstate New York, right? Need to plow that driveway. I have a guy I've used for 20 years, but I would tell him to use Mike. The guy I've been using for 20 years is great, but God, Mike is amazing. That's the way the world works. So I wouldn't do a lot of advertising. I would do content, like create stories, tell stories, post about your customers, don't say, oh, our product was great. Don't say that. Just say the client was great. The customer was great. The process was insanely difficult and we did it. And we're so proud of my team. All to everybody else. Everybody loves that. We win.
Is micro-targeting real or bogus or just a marketing term? James just had that question at the end, and I know we were talking a little bit about it, so I want to make sure it got answered before we go.
It's real, but you need to usually it's big businesses that are doing that because they're going to do 55 micro targets. They're going to look at micro influencers like on the social media platforms instead of, Kim Kardashian and her private island stuff. I don't know if everybody saw that the last couple of days. But yeah, because it's so hard that I just needed to get to my private island. The idea that you're going to get somebody with millions of followers is kind of over. Now I want to get the mom with 3 kids, and one of those kids is a developmentally disability kid, and that's the product I sell. I want that with 1,000 followers because a lot of them really know her. And a whole bunch of others don't know her, but feel like they know her. Does anybody do yoga out there? It's on the call. Any yoga lovers? You ever hear Yoga by Adrienne? Go take a look at how many followers she has. And the thing about her is she's got millions of followers and people who look at her videos, but she just did it like as a micro influencer. She just like totally believes in yoga can change your life. We're not going to just be like this insane, impossible objective of yoga is this. And, I'm in Hawaii on a, we've seen it all before, right? It's not that. It's like, just do this stuff. It's good for your head. It'll make your body feel good. You'll maybe live longer and be a nicer person. And she's been doing that from the beginning, and now she has millions of followers. I think what we're looking at is this micro targeting is really close to that kind of behavior, which is getting somebody who's not trying so hard to be a marketing machine, but they're believing in what they do and they're sharing it with a community that truly trusts them. So I would look at some of those micro influencers, and they're going to not be going, well, look, I charge this much. Instead, they're going to say, well, is your product any good? Is your service any good? That's who you want to work with. Because I would tell them, look, we'll let you try it, and then you tell us. And they may tell you stuff that you can change.
Thank you so much, Sean. I know we're a little bit over time, but I just wanted to just say a couple of things. First of all, thank you, Sean. This is our last
Welcome.
class in 2020, and you've been with us since the first one. So thank you so much for joining us and providing the information and just a great discussion here as well. For everyone else, that's either, that's also watching this as a recording or live. Again, thank you for joining us for the live. What a great conversation we had. And we will see you next week on Wednesday at 6 p.m. To hear from Elizabeth Weimer in more detailed into marketing. So it's going to be a really great session. And she is very engaging, very fun. So I look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Good seeing you all. Good luck.
Bye-bye.